I'm a big Dustin Poirier fan. I'm a big Conor fan, but I gotta call it like I see it. It just looked like Dustin Poirier regressed. Last night we saw UFC 318 take place in New Orleans, Louisiana, in my home state of Louisiana. We've got to bring these UFC events to New Orleans more frequently because from what I heard, everyone had a fantastic time. The food is great, the reception is great, and the crowd was absolutely electric last night. And although the card was kind of centered around Dustin Poirier's retirement, there was a lot of other storylines, and I want to get into that and talk about that. For those of you who follow the channel, you know one thing. That's two things. You know one thing. You can skip forward or skip back because I have timestamps. So whatever fight you're most interested in, feel free to do so. But I encourage you guys who haven't viewed the channel before, hang in there with me. Let's talk about the fights together. Now, for the sake of time, we're not going to talk about all the fights on the early prelims and on the prelims, but we are going to talk about the final two fights of the prelims, starting with Marvin Vettori versus Brendan Allen. It was absolutely a mistake not putting this fight onto the main card. I knew that there was going to be at least one fight that didn't deliver in the same way that this one was going to. And I was absolutely right about that. This fight was not even the main event of the prelims. What the hell's up with that? There was a few things about this fight that made it main card worthy. You got the number 10 and number 11 middleweight of the world facing off. And you didn't even really have to build it up like crazy. These guys have beef, like real legitimate beef. They got into a fight in the casino. We know that Marvin Vettori's brother passed away, so he's got a giant chip on his shoulder. Literally, not just that, but his shoulder had to be surgically repaired. He tore almost every single ligament in his shoulder that he could. So this was his comeback fight. Not to mention all the wars that we've seen from Marvin Vettori, the fights with Adesanya. But I think that the UFC tried to make it up to him, and we'll get into that a little bit later. In round one, Marvin Vettori started a little bit slow. Brendan Allen was finding a little success on the feet, and he got a beautiful takedown. Was able to get some ground and pound on Vettori and busted him open really bad. And I'm thinking, oh no, is Marvin Vettori about to get finished in the first round with all of this that has happened in his life? And of course he's not. Marvin Vettori can't be finished, especially with all the things that have happened. He was not only fighting for himself, I believe he was fighting for his brother as well. He had a big chip on his shoulder, like I mentioned earlier. In round two, Vettori started to have a lot more success. He started to feel more at home on the feet, and it looked like he seemed more comfortable. And again, coming off of that shoulder injury, you never know what your limits are. And I think Marvin Vettori started to find himself a little bit more at home in the second round. I actually had him win in the second round. And, Vettori reminds me a lot of Paulo Costa. These guys are very dangerous, but they have to do one thing. They have got to push forward, dictate the pace, and they have to be very, very active. Whenever those guys do that, it's a recipe for success. They're going to win the fight. And like I said, I had Vettori winning rounds 2, and I also had him winning round 3. Let's throw up the punch statistics and kind of look at it together. You see, you be the judge. Now, it is very deceiving looking at how many takedowns were landed. Again, this was mostly in the first round, if not all in the first round. It surprised me. Brendan Allen just stopped shooting takedowns towards the end of the fight, middle to end of the fight. But he did do enough to secure the win. But I do have to ask, which one of y'all out in the crowd were cheering for Brendan Allen? Which one of you guys at home were cheering for Brendan Allen? Especially with all of the shit Marvin's been through. I was really rooting for him to win this fight. And maybe that's my bias creeping in, but again, I thought he did do enough to win. Side note, Brendan Allen is not from Louisiana. He's from South Carolina. I just thought I'd throw that in there. Moving up the card to Vinicius Oliveira versus Kyler Phillips. Vinicius Oliveira has been very impressive, and it really showed in this fight. Kyler Phillips just didn't look like he belonged. In the first round, he was having success, but my God, they were just on two different playing fields. I mean, I liken it to this. Vinicius Oliveira looked like a UFC guy. Kyler Phillips looked like an amateur. That's how he made Kyler Phillips look. And we know that Kyler Phillips is no scrub. But Oliveira was just able to land at will. I do believe as he continues to move up in competition, those hands being down might need to start coming up because that might just be an issue. Let's look at the punch statistics. As you can see, Oliveira outstruck this guy by, he put in double the output of Kyler Phillips. And I think it's a win for Kyler that he didn't get put to sleep in this fight because I honestly thought that Oliveira was going to be able to find the finish. It did seem like he kind of took the third round off just because I'm sure his corner told him, hey, you're probably up 2 rounds. But still, I had Oliveira winning all 3 rounds. The first round is the only one that's kind of debatable. It's funny. After the fight, Oliveira called out Sean O'Malley because he said Umar Nurmagomedov is scared of him. Do y'all think for 1 second that that's true? I don't know. Maybe it is. But that would be a good fight. I don't see Sean O'Malley fighting Oliveira, though. Like, I think there's some other matchups that make more sense. I would see O'Malley fighting Cejudo before he fought Oliveira. Moving on up to the main card, starting with Michael Johnson and Daniel Zellhuber. The lead up to this fight was kind of crazy. Like, where did this beef come from? Michael Johnson is like pissed off at Zellhuber just because he was talking to him on Instagram and trying to get the fight. Well, he got the fight. So Zellhuber was just doing his job to put himself into position. Michael Johnson said leading up to this fight that he wants to push. He wants to make a push for the title. Like, that is his goal. And so that made me think. Because when you get to a certain age, I ask myself when making picks, what are these guys fighting for? Like, what's their reason? What's their why, And if a guy is 39 years old saying, no, this isn't for money, I want to be champion. That intrigued me. That made me curious for this matchup. So the bell rings for the first round, and we kind of know Zellhuber for his kicks, yes, but also, like, he's got some pretty nasty hands, but Michael Johnson neutralized all of that. I mean, he was in and out, throwing long combination. And what impressed me the most from Michael Johnson is his investment to the body. I mean, the jab to the body, the 1-2 to the body was there all night. And the only thing that Zellhuber really had going for him was those damn kicks. I actually watched One Championship Friday fights this last Friday. A Muay Thai fight came on, and there was a guy that had gotten kicked in the arm so many times that he couldn't even get out of his corner in the second round. These kicks in this fight were 2 to 3 times more devastating. I mean, they were cracking. So I know Michael Johnson is feeling it today. But Michael Johnson hung in there to get a pretty convincing win. I was hoping that he would call somebody out. I thought a Michael Chandler call out would make a lot of sense, but he didn't. He's going to do whatever the UFC wants him to do. And I'm going to be paying very close attention to Michael Johnson again, because it's not every day that a guy that's 39 years old looks the way that Michael Johnson looks. He looked really, really good last night. Moving up the card to Dan Ige versus Patricio Pitbull. Since Pitbull has come to the UFC, I've been very excited to see what he does. Like, anytime these stars come over, your Kai Asakura's, your MVPs, Michael Chandler, the list kind of goes on and on. I'm invested in these guys. Patchy Mix too. You want to see these guys succeed, right? And in Patricio Pitbull's first fight, he just fell short. And I'm going to be honest. That was no walk in the park. Like, his debut into the UFC, Yair Rodriguez, that's not a good time or a fun time for anybody. Now, he said that he's used to the 5-round settings because he's so used to the championship fights. So, potentially that had a part to play in it. Dana loves to say that the lights are just brighter in the UFC, and that's why sometimes we don't see it translate as easy. This fight really felt like a make-or-break fight for Pitbull, right? He's 38 years old. He really didn't need to go 0-2 going into the UFC. And I was a little bit concerned in the first round because he started out slow, and the commentary was talking about it too, especially Daniel Cormier. Like, why is he starting so slow? Why is his volume not there? I think we saw why going into the second round. So Patricio Pitbull is a very good fighter. He's very patient too, which a lot of times you'll see with the younger fighters, they're not as patient, and then that gets them into trouble. Well, Patricio Pitbull waited for the right time. When he got 50K Dan Ige hurt, he jumped on him, and he tried to finish the fight. Ultimately, it's very hard to finish Dan Ige. I don't know if we'll ever see it from now to the end of his career, but oh my God, did Pitbull come close. Now, Pitbull is a guy that I just don't know if he's particularly great or excellent in one specific area, but he's really good everywhere. And to see him exercise the takedowns and have success with that really impressed me, because in this division, in this featherweight division, that's going to take you far, right? There's not a ton of great wrestlers. Volk at the top is really good. Obviously, our guy Movsar Evloev is a good wrestler. But he was securing these takedowns against Dan Ige, and Dan Ige does have pretty solid takedown defense. I bring up the point about wrestling because I really do believe that it made all the difference in this fight. In the third round, Patricio Pitbull was shooting for a takedown, and right as he was shooting for his takedown, Dan Ige threw a kick, and he had to eat it. His shin wrapped right around Pitbull's nose and hurt him really bad. Now, we got to see the recovery from Pitbull because he instantly went into the clinch, tried to recover, and recovered very well, and ultimately hung in there, and he won the fight. We can look at the stats right here to see the full tale of what happened. I had Pitbull winning rounds 1 and round 2. I thought it was a pretty solid performance, and again, it was one that he needed to win. He couldn't afford to lose this fight. And you're going to hear it right here first. I think the fight to make next for Patricio Pitbull is going to be against Gene Silva. Now, I don't know if the UFC is going to do that. They might try to keep those two far apart until a later time. But, oh my God, wouldn't that be a car crash of a fight? Moving up the card, so the fight that I thought should have been awarded fight of the night, there was a few other ones that you can make a case for, but this one I kind of thought was a no-brainer. Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez. Now, in this fight, I guess like 2 minutes in, I noticed that something was just off. Something wasn't right about Kevin Holland. And then it hit me. He's not talking. He's not going back and forth with Rodriguez. Like, he's not his usual self. And he looked all right, but his punches in the first round just didn't look accurate. They weren't finding the target like they usually do. And it was a very close first round. My heart says Rodriguez, but I could absolutely see a case where you could give the first round to Kevin Holland. Now, in the second round, all hell broke loose. All hell broke loose. Kevin Holland got hit with a big shot from D-Rod and was as hurt as I've ever seen Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland is one of those guys that, like, you just don't know if he can be put away because you've never seen it before. Well, we saw it last night, and I was like, how is he going to respond to this? Like, we've never seen him this hurt. What's about to happen? And sometimes these fighters, they have a choice to make. There's a still small voice that says, okay, enough is enough. I think now is a good time to check out, and we'll try again next time. But Kevin Holland said, nah, we're going for this. We're about to make it a show. And oh my God, did they. He was able to recover and hang in there, and I don't know how, but he made it through the second round. And in the third round, Kevin Holland finds Rodriguez's chin. And Rodriguez is stumbling all over the place, got noodle legs. And Kevin Holland was exhausted. You can see he had him in the clinch, trying to throw flying knees, trying to angle his head down to find the uppercut, to finally put his lights out. And he did find a few of those punches, but D-Rod just wouldn't go away. Holland got about this close. I was losing my mind. I just knew that Kevin Holland was about to put D-Rod away and make the comeback of a lifetime. But it wasn't that easy. He ended up trying to take D-Rod down and get the Darce choke, and then D-Rod reversed position and was on top of Kevin Holland. It wasn't enough for D-Rod to win the third round, but so they survived through the third. They complete the fight. How do we score this? Lucky for us, we don't have to speculate on how to, because my roommate is actually a professional MMA judge, and he's about to walk us through this. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be on the show for the second time. Anytime Will sends a request my way, I am more than happy to oblige. I watched the fights last night, and in the case of Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez, I'm going to give you my professional opinion on the matter. Now, in my area of expertise, it is very, very rare that all three judges scoring a contest score it the exact same way. And in this contest, every single judge gave the first 2 rounds to Daniel Rodriguez and the last round to Kevin Holland. Now, what do I have to say about the matter? Well, let's get into it. The first thing that we need to look at are the fight statistics. Now, as you can see, everything is pretty much dead even. We see 1 takedown for Kevin Holland, 0 for Daniel Rodriguez. So how do we read this? Now, obviously, the biggest thing that we have to look at is damage. There's also things in the fight that I like to call moments. Small, medium, and big moments. In the first round of this contest, both fighters had the same number of small moments. I had this first round an even draw. In the world of 10-point must systems, things can get a little bit tricky, but that's not how I always tend to look at things. In the second round, Daniel Rodriguez had what I like to call a very big moment. where Kevin Holland was hurt, and he was hurt really badly. Now, was it enough for me to rule it a 10-8? No, it wasn't, because I didn't believe that at any moment Kevin Holland was about to be finished. He showed the necessary actions of recovering and even fought back, landing some pretty decent shots of his own. So I had that round 10-9 favoring Daniel Rodriguez. Now, this is the tricky part. In the third round, Kevin Holland had his very own big moment. And as a matter of fact, I felt as if his big moment was even bigger than Daniel Rodriguez's moment in the second. So let's call this a mega moment. And at one point, I really thought that Daniel Rodriguez was going to get finished. But Daniel Rodriguez did get top position, landing a few glancing shots of ground and pound blows. So he showed that it couldn't entirely be ruled a 10-8 round. So, with all of the facts equipped, how do I judge this? In a best case scenario, I had Kevin Holland winning this fight. Worst possible case scenario, this fight would have been ruled a majority draw from yours truly. Thank you. Let's all give a round of applause to my roommate. I really don't tend to agree. Let's all give a round of applause to my roommate. I really don't disagree with that statement. Moving on up to the co-main event of the evening, Roman Kopylov versus Paulo Costa. It's been a minute since we've seen Costa. And the last time we saw him, he didn't look great against Sean Strickland. Can we just be honest? I mentioned earlier the similarities between Costa's style and Marvin Vettori's style, where these are guys that need to push forward and kind of dictate the pace, and they have to throw volume, right? They can't just counter-strike and sit around, because it really makes for a boring fight. We've seen those before. And Costa did exactly that. I mean, he had Kopylov shook. From the opening bell, Costa started to implement the body kicks, the leg kicks, and he was getting the respect of Roman Kopylov. There were times when he would feint the kicks and Roman Kopylov would just jump back, super scared, giving him probably too much respect. And look, Roman Kopylov is no small guy. These are two very big middleweights. Kopylov can crack, but he was just never able to get going. There was one moment in the fight where Kopylov goes to dive forward with a big jab, and he gets met with a huge right hand from Paulo Costa. So it was like, even when Kopylov would try to go forward, he was met with a ton of resistance. And this was the exact fight that Costa needed to have. At the end of the fight, who does he call out? None other than Khamzat Chimaev. And I'm going to be honest, as I've been thinking about this Chimaev fight against DDP, I'm a little worried about Khamzat, right? And when we talk about future matchups, that Paulo Costa-Khamzat Chimaev fight has got to happen. It's going to happen. And I think if Paulo Costa brings his A game, I think he can beat Khamzat Chimaev. And I'm a big Chimaev fan. Don't do me, all right? All right, guys, we have finally made it to the main event of the evening. For those of you who stuck around, y'all are the true MVPs, because I would have dipped out a long time ago. I'm just being honest. Max Blessed Holloway versus Dustin the Diamond Poirier. And the scene was set. You couldn't make it any better in a damn storybook. Lafayette's own Dustin Poirier fighting in New Orleans, Louisiana in a trilogy fight. How is this going to go down? And I'm going to be honest, I'm absolutely surprised. I didn't see it happening the way that it did. Did you? Be for real. Did you see Max being able to go out there and have the type of success that he did against Dustin? I talked earlier about these small moments, these small voices that these fighters have in fights when they're in trouble. I gotta believe that Dustin Poirier was having some inner dialogue in that first round when he got caught by Max Holloway. He was hurt bad. Spaghetti legs. Dancing all over the damn canvas. But he survived. He survived and made it to the second round, where he started to have a little bit more success. He even had a big moment of his own. And this was another fight that was extremely close, but I have to call out something. Didn't Dustin Poirier kind of look like McGregor? Let me explain. When Conor McGregor came back from fighting Floyd Mayweather, his whole style changed. He used to have this wide karate stance, and then he went to having this real heavy on the front foot boxing stance. And where Dustin was able to have success was the leg kicks, because that leg was just right out there. Where were the leg kicks from Dustin Poirier in this fight? It just seemed like Dustin had kind of adopted the same kind of style, this heavy boxing style. And I know that Dustin's always been more of a boxer. I know that. But Where were the leg kicks? Where were these other weapons? Now, with that being said, I know that there was a ton of distractions that Dustin usually doesn't have to put up with. It's his last fight. There's all this media. He stated that he believed that there was way too much media that he had to deal with, too many obligations. So that's going to play a factor in the fight. And obviously, I wish that he would have won. Everyone wishes that Dustin would have won, right? But this is the sort of performance that you lose no stock from. And that is the story of Dustin Poirier. And that's why I love him so much. That's why the state of Louisiana loves him so much. And we are all very proud of him. Guys, this is going to be the conclusion of this video. I've rambled and went on long enough. If you like this video, feel free to like and subscribe. Let me know what you thought about some of these fights down in the comments.